live. Say hi, April.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, super cool, super cool. So let's just take that graphic off and then we will introduce ourselves. So let's just wait for a little while. So we've got a few people watching us, which is awesome. So if you are watching us, then please do let us know where you're watching us from in the chat, because this is April's first live show.
Yeah.
And we are super excited about doing this. So my name's Anita Wong and I'm hosting the show with April today, just to help keep things rolling and to do some of the admin in the background. So April, do you want to just introduce yourself to everybody?
Yes, of course. Hi, everybody. I'm April Kling Meyer with Creativity is Spirituality, which is a movement that I founded, I would say about 1.5 years ago. And now it's turned into a ministry because I am currently in training to be an interfaith minister with One Spirit Interfaith Foundation. And I get ordained in late July. So everything that I do has a spiritual bent to it. And it became very clear to me in my own process and my own work that my creativity and my spirituality were one and the same. And I know that's not necessarily true for everybody, but it's definitely true for me. And I'm finding that I'm attracting people into my life, and especially clients into my life, that find that very deeply resonates with them, that their creativity and their spirituality already are the same thing, or that is a practice that is very intriguing and the words are just very enlightening to them. So I'm trying to spread those 3 words everywhere I go. And it's really just become my entire purpose in my life. And it didn't come out of a vacuum. I've had some really excellent teachers and guides along the way. So I wanted to mention that too. If any of them are watching, you know who you are. And I thank you so very much for being here.
Awesome, awesome. So I just want to say hello to Heather. I think she's watching on your YouTube channel. So just say hi. Hi, Heather. It's lovely for you to be here. So hopefully, if you've got any other questions whilst you're watching, do drop them in the chat, because we can definitely answer them for you as we go through this live. So let's get up to the first question. So it's really, really exciting. So let's have a little look at, so April, what is creativity and how are we defining it in this context? So I think that's really important for people to understand how that all works.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more, Anita. Creativity, as I define it, is the way that we express ourselves, the way that we express our thoughts and our emotions. It typically is going to utilize our body, our physical body, and it's going to definitely utilize one, if not more, of the 5 or more senses. And it's going to involve the 5 senses, or 6 senses, if you prefer. It's going to involve those of ourselves as well as those of anyone who happens to be witnessing that creativity, the output of that creativity, or just the act of creativity itself. So anybody that thinks that they're not creative, I happen to disagree, because I think that creativity is a divine birthright of everyone that exists, and that it's a very powerful energy that can provide healing and release. I realize that that is not a new concept, but it is also very, still very fringe. So I really want to introduce to people first and foremost, before I dive deeper into the idea and the concept of reclaiming your creativity, because reclaiming your creativity definitely depends upon defining it in that particular context.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really, really interesting. And I hope, it's really interesting for me as well to learn a little bit more about what you do. So that's, excellent, excellent. So let's have a little look at the second question, because I think if we move through the questions, and then if anyone that's watching's got any questions that they want us to answer, then, you can put them in the comments. But also if you're watching the replay, then, we will come back and look at your questions. So if you do want to ask a question and you're watching the replay of this, then just let us know that you're watching the replay. And also if you have a question, put a question mark at the beginning of your comments so that we can pull it up if we get quite a few. Okay, so why is it so important that we do reclaim our creativity, April?
Well, and the way that we do things in Western society, we're taught that our creativity pretty much exists to please others. And because of the way that we used to think of creativity as belonging to pretty much anyone except us, and we tend to give it away to pretty much anybody who would claim any authority over it. That that can also mean a lot of different things, but how that tends to look, how that usually looks, and if this resonates with you, great. If not, cast it aside. But we tend to also give away our creativity at the demand of authority. It can show up as a duty or an obligation. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's an authority. It can be just somebody who we feel that we have a duty or obligation to. We can always choose who receives our energy, who receives our creative energy. But before we're able to do that, we must acknowledge that our creativity is ours first, and that we have a little bit more selfish with it. Oh, that selfish is such a dirty word, which is why I like to call this sacred selfishness. We need to be more sacredly selfish with our creativity. We can benefit ourselves on extremely deep levels if we're willing, and we can use it to heal ourselves, and we can use it to release difficult emotions and even create new opportunities for ourselves if we're willing to harness that energy. And in order to harness that energy, we have to acknowledge where we're putting it, where we're giving it, who's getting it. And that's really kind of what I mean by that. I'm sure that there will be tons of questions about that in the comments, most of all. So I am eager to get to those too.
Okay, yeah. So exciting. So if you do have a question that you want to ask, I know there's a few of you watching now. So if you do have a question, then do pop it into the comments box, because we will get to it at the end of the live or even during the live. So if you do pop it in, and we'll stop and answer that question. I just said to Heather, thanks for coming, and she's just popped in to say that she's happy that she could be here, which is super awesome. So really excited that you're here. So nice. Okay, so oh, so sweet.
Wonderful.
It's nice though, because like when it's live and you can actually explain these things to people, it really makes a difference, because that's why live, like I know you do a lot of podcasts as well.
Yeah.
So I know that the podcasts go out, but actually putting a face to the voice really, really helps that connection, and really helps people to sort of like take that first step to reach out to you. So we'll talk to you and we'll share with everyone how you can reach April after the show, and how you can connect with her further as well. Great. So the third question that we've got coming in is, who do we need to reclaim our creativity from?
That's really kind of up to the person who's asking it. The person who's making that inquiry really needs to ask themselves. But here's how it generally turns out the answers is people who are authority figures in our lives, people who are our employers, our managers, our supervisors, our parents, our teachers, professors, experts in our field. Those tend to be the ones who come up in these types of inquiries. And the reason why is because we allow them to tell us what is right and what is good about what it is we create. We allow them to set the bar of what is quality, what is not. It is so easy to relinquish that kind of control to somebody who speaks with authority and seems to know more than ourselves about what it is that our medium happens to be. And we yield that a lot. And there's a reason we do that, right? It's to earn money. It's to please a client. It's to keep things peaceful in the workplace, for instance, or in terms of our parents and those who, live with us. And, when we're children, that's to keep the peace in the home environment and to make our parents happy, which, it's a very deep level, that relationship that we have with our parents and guardians and the people who raise us. And we don't want to upset them. We want to make sure that they're happy. And of course, I'm talking about all the different ways that they give us positive and negative feedback. And that includes money, that includes praise, that includes criticism. So we really have to be careful of who we yield that to. And if you haven't been careful all your life, you're not alone. In fact, we're all very much trained from birth to just yield that authority to pretty much anybody that is older than us or bigger than us. And we're hardwired to do that for our own safety and security and really our very own survival. So we really have to relearn who it is that we yield that authority to over what we make and whether or not that is good or of quality. And I do also want to make another kind of note of this, that recipients of our creative energy, all of the people that I mentioned above, but it can also those who we feel to whom duty or obligation. And that can include children that we have in our lives. That can include students if we're teachers. It can include the charities that we volunteer for. It can include anybody that we feel a sense of duty or obligation to please or make happy. And we tend to give creative energy to them as well, even if they're not in authority over us. That tends to be something that comes up in that inquiry, though. And I really want to challenge everybody listening to do that inquiry in and of yourself. Sometimes that can come up as somebody in your life who is still in your past, who is still echoing in your head something horrible they said to you about the way that you play piano, or somebody from your past that still inspires you today to keep going and to keep trying. For instance, a really beloved professor of mine that sat me down and told me that I was an excellent writer. That meant so much to me, and I'm still writing to this day. But your creativity is your divine birthright. Nobody has the right to take it from you. Nobody has the right to tell you if it's good or not, or if it's bad. And you only have the right to tell that to yourself. And I really, really welcome and that I really want to encourage everybody to give those types of inquiry a try. Just that. And that could launch so much of your own creative energy forward.
Really interesting. It's really interesting because you're right. There's lots of things that we hold from the past that affect how we behave in the future. And I think that's, totally true, that you can hold those negative things that were told to you when you were younger, and they can affect everything that you do even today. So definitely. So then that moves us on to the next question, which is, when do we know it's time to reclaim our creativity? So how do we know that's something we need that we need to do? So like you say, when do you recognize that what you've been holding on to in the past is having a profound effect on what's happening now and in the future? Right.
That's an important question to ask. For those of you who are watching live, you may already have made this inquiry for yourself. And if you haven't, I welcome you to do that right now. Number one, if the words reclaim your creativity just resonate with you on a really, you're like, yes, and you're saying yes to that phrase, then that's probably a good sign that it's time to start that kind of process and that inquiry. But generally speaking, when I'm working with a client and when I enter into this inquiry for myself, for instance, it's going to come up with quite a few different patterns and behaviors and really just kind of a few key things that I've noticed. Dissatisfaction with life, feeling unable to change circumstances or cope with them. We all know that beautiful prayer, accept the change things I cannot change, and the wisdom and change the things I can, and to know the difference. But sometimes that prayer only goes so far, and we just feel stagnant. We feel stuck. We feel bored. We feel trapped. We feel like imprisoned by our own lives. And that is generally a very good sign that your creative energy is being given away freely to pretty much anybody that wants it or needs it or claims it. So another way that this can come up is when you find that you're attracting a lot of drama and conflict in your life. And I'm not talking about the inevitable pains of life, like loss. And there's a lot of that we cannot control. And I don't ever want to say that and people take it as, oh, that I'm victim blaming or anything like that. No, I just mean that just a lot of interpersonal conflict, particularly with people we're intimate with, that can really show up in ways that we feel like we need to reclaim our creativity, not necessarily from them. Maybe where there's some transference there. Maybe we're getting in a lot of arguments with our spouses and partners at the end of the day because we're really needing to reclaim some of that creative energy from our jobs. And we're transferring that onto people we love. In fact, that's actually probably going to be more common than us mouthing off to our bosses. It's probably going to show up at a home with transference, that patterns of the relationships just in general. If you do have problems with authority figures like coworkers, partners, family, but not coworkers, partners, and family, but people who are an authority over you. If you find that you're just really feeling like you have problems with authority figures, such as members of law enforcement, which again, there's a whole sticky thing that I really want to say that if anything happens to you, if you're ever victimized by a member of law enforcement, that's not your fault. I'm not talking about that. I'm definitely talking about just seeing authority figures in your life as default adversarial, especially people who are in management over you, especially people who are put in charge of like teaching you throughout your day, principals in your school, deans, professors. If you've had challenging aspects of your relationship then that weren't definitely something that you brought into that, it's a pattern that you have to do a lot of self-inquiry to really check in with yourself and see if that's what that is. But if you have problems with authority and it's a consistent pattern in your life, then you might want to and see if creativity needs to be reclaimed from people who have hurt you in those categories, because authority figures do have the power to do a lot of harm, and that's usually where that comes from. Another example would be high risk behavior. If you're self-medicating with alcohol, drugs, or other addictive substances, or you're behaving in addictive ways, such as an addiction to sex, an addiction to social media, if those are things that have become addictive for you and that you're also noticing that they're becoming risky and you're aware of the fact that they're probably causing you harm or will cause harm at the rate that you're going, you definitely claim your creative energy back from anything and everything that has taken it from you or that you've given it away to. And that can include numbing out. And I want to talk a little bit about numbing out and how it's different from addiction. Numbing out is any form of like passive media use, scrolling on social media as opposed to posting and interacting. Like do is what a lot of people call it. Watching excessive news, being addicted to the news, watching excessive amounts of television. You define what the word excessive means to you, but generally speaking, if more than like 2 or 3 hours of TV a day, you might have a problem. Excessive internet use. Guys, I'm not sitting here in an ivory tower on this either, because my goodness, I don't think I'm ever not on the internet. And that is definitely something I have to reclaim my creativity. And that is, and you're not alone in me saying that. Like, it's definitely something, and no, I'm not alone in saying that. It's definitely something that I personally have to reclaim my creativity from. I am on this road with you, not looking down on it. So and other just kind of small ways that can appear, like the urge that that you want to create that shows up for you at different times of day, and then by the end of the day you are completely drained and you have no energy left to seek creative fulfillment. And that should really tell you something. Or the end of your week, if you make it all the way to the weekend and you're saying, I just want to really get that project going, and then you end up spending that weekend like just completely flattened, and all you have the energy for is passive entertainment, such as binge watching TV. Yes, you definitely have some creative energy that you need to reclaim for yourself. This can also appear as perfectionism. Just going to give that a dramatic pause. If you're a perfectionist, yeah. 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 And then the very last thing, Anita, would be just not really recognizing ourselves, really like seeing ourselves how we used to be as who we are, identifying with something outside of ourselves, identifying with the body, relationship with the body, being easily triggered, and of course, importance. If you're not getting enough sleep or if you're sleeping too much, you've got some creative energy that you need to reclaim for yourself. It will help.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So do let us know if any of that does, resonate with you. Are you doing any of those things? Do you need to release a bit more of your creativity? And I think that brings us to the next question, which is actually, how do you reclaim your creativity? How do you actually reclaim it? Explain the steps to us a little bit more.
Well, for starters, work with me. Be my client. I won't beat around the bush. That's why we're here. And it's really just to tell you that that's what I'm here to help you with. But there are a variety of things that you can do. If whatever reason you're not quite ready to hire somebody to coach you through this, if you're not quite ready to make that engagement, there are a few things I can suggest for you to try. And some of these things are things you can just do on your own. And some of these things are just things that I sell that you can just buy and do on your own. Expressive arts, just in general. I mean, if you just get some colors, some crayons, some markers, and a piece of paper, and just be free. I mean, I really think that sounds so silly, but are you willing to really do that and give it a try and see how silly it isn't? Because if you are willing to give that a try, I'm pretty sure, especially if you're willing to make it a discipline of it. I recommend free association journaling a lot. And I know that is something that if you're watching this video, you've probably gotten recommended to you a lot because this is something of interest to you. And you may have been someone that has, but if you've tried it in the past and it didn't work for you, I recommend just making a discipline of that too. Like Julia Cameron is a fantastic book. It is definitely informing an amount of my practice. Not all of it, but it definitely informs quite a bit of my practice. I recommend pages of free association journaling, the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, which is in slight conflict to what I recommend, which is dream journaling right when you wake up first thing in the morning. And I sell a program that is self-contained and self-directed that you can see on the link, which is on my YouTube profile and pretty much every social media profile I have. And I also just really feel like maintaining, like if you already have a creative practice, if you have an established creative practice, you still feel like you need to reclaim creative energy, particularly those of you who are professional creatives. Maintaining a personal discipline that belongs to you and only you and has an audience of one. And I really want to leave that really important phrase with all of you, an audience of one. The really important aspect of expressive arts or anything that you're doing in your own creative discipline to reclaim your creativity only for you. You're not writing in your free association journaling to be published online or in a book. That's for you and to get it out of your head. And you're not doing anything on a piece of paper in expressive arts that is for ever going to be hung on a gallery, ever going to be put in a frame. In fact, with my clients, when I guide them through an expressive arts practice, I encourage them to burn it afterward. Just to completely remove any temptation is to start using it as a performance for someone else that they need to be reclaiming creativity from. And if that doesn't kind of give you an example of how hardcore I am about this, I don't know what will, but really the audience of one is the only audience you need to make this possible. And if you need a witness, somebody to guide you through this, that's me. That's what I do. And I would love to help you.
Yeah, so we've got a comment from Heather there. She says, I agree with work. And then she's actually put another comment. So I'm going to put that up so you can see it as well. So maybe you can answer that while I'm sharing April's free download, but also the link to buy her workshops in the chat as well. So if you want to go and sign up for that, then by all means do that. And there's also the 5 easy steps to discover the powers of your dream journaling. So do, you know, click that link and sign up for that as well. So Heather, I'll leave you to, sorry, April, not Heather. Do you want to just address that question?
Absolutely. I especially want to work with people who are experiencing medical disorders, people who are disabled. I have a special place in my heart for anybody who is trying to overcome those types of obstacles. So I'm extremely grateful. But Heather, I'm definitely going to expound on that up. It is definitely an energy. It's something else we need to reclaim our energy from. In fact, somebody once said to me, and this was in the last few days, that they really felt that they need to reclaim their creativity away from them. And I agree with that. And I also think that these two things can be true, that we can channel that grief into what it is we're doing creatively. And I also feel that these setbacks, these outside forces, these bodily forces that appear to us as setbacks are really a couple of different things. They're a call for us to develop a greater and more constructive and more beautiful, loving relationship with our own bodies. And only one real language that they can speak to us to tell them that they tell us that they need us, and that is pain. Physical pain. So when I guide people through this process, it is something that we address immediately. We address physical pain, where it is, where it's coming from, and we interact with it. I would never say that expressive arts can cure that type of thing, because it's really, if that's something you're able to do with it, that is awesome. That is fantastic. It can happen. I've heard of that happening. But what I really want to put the focus on is to create the open line of communication with physical pain, to find out what it is it's trying to tell you. And as far around that is in and of itself a hurdle. And when you're dealing with pain, with physical pain, with disability, keeping to a schedule can be extremely difficult. And I want to honor that. So I really want there to be an element of compassion in how I respond to this question, because I think that self-compassion is really the practice we're talking about here. Having a discipline, it seems like we're being really rigid with ourselves, and to some extent that we are, but really it is making a request of ourselves that we can't always grant. And we have to really engage. If you just decide that I'm going to get up every single morning at 10 a.m. and I am going to finger paint, and at 10, so much pain that you can't even get out of bed, you just need to interact with that part of yourself that wants to get out of bed and finger paint and say, hey, let's have compassion for ourselves now. That's not going to be possible today, but we'll try again tomorrow. And that's really all that you can do with a discipline. I don't do my disciplines every single day. And another practice that I've found immensely helpful is just treating all of my creative disciplinary practices as a menu. I have a list of things that I like to do, and that includes free association journaling, or morning pages, as Julia Cameron calls it, dream journaling, tarot reading, write the aspects of the different celestial bodies, because I'm way into astrology and I think that's very interesting to observe. But there is almost no way that I can do that every single day, every single one of those things. Just like when I go to a restaurant and they've got a menu that they put in front of me, there's no way I can eat everything on that menu. But I do have a few favorites, and I can always, I like a menu too. I do have a few favorites, and things that I like to order on a routine basis when I order from my favorite restaurants. And I also like to try new things when I go to a restaurant too. So I think that's a pretty good analogy, because there's no way we can eat everything on our own creative menu every single day. But if we have one or two things that we can check in with on a routine basis, be it weekly or daily, then I think you're doing loads better than most people. And looking at a trajectory of our past self, if we're doing more than our past self was doing, then we're doing a heck of a lot, and that's great. So maintain compassion and treat your creative practices like a delicious menu that you can order one or two things from on a daily basis.
Wow, amazing. That's really, really good. I love the menu idea as well, so that you can just, have a selection of different things that you can turn to help with that. And then you can just pick and choose as you feel that you can need for those. So that's really good. So we've gone through all of the questions actually, and it's been amazing. I really want to thank Heather for putting up the comments there, asking the questions, taking some information, and I've shared the links in the chat for April, so you can download her tip sheets, and you can also make a booking if you want to buy the workshop. But also I've put the Calendly link in, so if you do want to have a conversation with April, then you can just book it in and choose the time that would suit you as well. So Heather says thank you, so which is great. So yeah, thank you for joining us.
You're the best, Heather.
Yeah.
You really are. Thank you so much for coming. Those were some awesome questions. Thanks for asking those.
Yeah. So do you have any closing comments or anything like that you'd like to say, April, before we've also got to remind them that we'll be back next week at the same time, because this is going to be a show that we're going to be carrying on. So April, you far away, do you have anything else you want to say?
Well, we didn't get to talk about spirituality too terribly much today. However, that is the topic of next week's inquiry, we'll call it. I love that word.
Yeah.
So next week we'll be talking about we need to reclaim our spirituality. It's a completely different conversation, but you'll find that if you dive deep into that line of questioning for yourself, that you'll find creative energy there. And very similar answers to what we talked about today. So if creativity is spirituality is a new concept for you today, and you're brand new to this whole idea, and you're just watching for the very first time, I really want to welcome you and challenge you to just plant that little seed about, first of all, how is my creativity and my spirituality the same thing? And the other takeaway from today is, who or what do I need to reclaim my creativity from? And just start there. Let that be your prompt for all the writing, dancing, painting, drawing, whatever your method of creative expression is. Let that be your prompt for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. And I'm putting April's links into the chat as well, so that if you want to follow her elsewhere, so do subscribe to April's YouTube channel, because that will help you get notification that when we go live next week. So if you click that bell as well, you will be notified that the live stream's coming up. We usually schedule it a couple of days ahead of time, so that you can click that get reminder button, and we will be back next week at the same time with some more interesting topics. So if you see that scheduled live come up and you have a question that you'd like to ask April, or you would like her to address during the live, whether it's that live or we actually do a live around your question, then do pop it into the comments of any of the videos that you've watched here, and we will address them in the next video. Okay, brilliant. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, April. And we will see you next week.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's excited to see you later then, folks. Bye.